Hi Archers! In this video, I'll be guiding you through an updated weapon tier list for patch 2.6.4. We'll be going through the pros and cons of each weapon and their placements. My name is Teeds. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe and click the bell for more ARCHERO videos. Disclaimer, this is based on my calculations and opinion. You may not agree with me, and that's perfectly fine. What's important here is that you stick with what you find the most fun. Everyone should stick to what they like using the most. There are 7 weapons currently in ARCHERO. We have the Tornado, the Spear, the Staff, the Scythe, the Bow, the Saw Blade, and the newest weapon, Gale Force. Let's first go through the damage rankings. First of all, damage is not everything. We have to consider things such as abilities, knockbacks, and situations. So while this means that damage is higher on one weapon, it doesn't exactly mean that it's better than the other. Alright, here are the damage rankings based on my calculations. In last place, in 7th place, we have the Brave Bow, with and without its passive. Then we have the Spear, then we have the Staff, without diagonal arrows, then we have the Scythe, then we have the Saw Blade, then we have the Tornado. ARCHERO has added a new weapon in the game called Gale Force. I did some calculations on where that would fit on the list for damage. Gale Force is a bit tricky to calculate in comparison to other weapons due to how it works. This calculation doesn't include its unique passive, charge, shot, so instead I roughly estimated the attack speed of the weapon and calculated the DPS value without its passive. From my calculation, I've determined that the Gale Force has the highest DPS value. Staff would still have the higher DPS value of diagonal arrows, but in terms of raw damage, no abilities, Gale Force comes first over the Tornado. I guess you could call it Gale first? Bad joke. But what does that mean for the weapon ranking? We'll be going through 2 tier lists, one for co-op mode and a general one. In C tier, we have the Saw Blade. The Saw Blade grants increased attack speed for 3 seconds upon entering levels. It places 3rd in overall damage and has the highest attack speed. With multi-shot, it grants same level knockback as the bow, and its small projectile means it's easy to see and clashes less with the environment and enemy attacks. The Saw Blade has an 80% modifier, which is decent but a lot less than some other weapons. Saw Blade relies more on its abilities. Why it's mostly considered to be C tier, it is because it has the worst epic passive out of all the weapons and not the easiest weapon to start a set with. The epic passive of this weapon basically just gives you an extra few shots, not making a huge difference in your fight, while other epic passives are active throughout the run. Personally though, I find this weapon to be super fun to use with its fast attack speed. For co-op, Saw Blade is SS tier, making it one of the best weapons to use in co-op mode. In B tier, Tornado. The Tornado has a unique mechanic where it returns to you like a boomerang, dealing damage to enemies on the way back. This weapon also gives you a piercing, which is basically a free ability. The Tornado used to deal the most damage overall over the other weapons, but still, it doesn't sit in a high tier. The Tornado has fast attack speed, highest raw damage, a strong epic passive, already comes with a free ability, can hit multiple enemies in its path, extremely strong in early chapters, personally the best to use for farming and strong against crowds and a swarm of mobs. Despite having one of the highest damages in the game, the return hit does not always connect, which can reduce the damage by a huge amount. There is no knockback, making it weak against melee mobs, does not synergize with Bouncy Wall and Ricochet, which are 2 very strong abilities, especially Ricochet being one of the strongest abilities in the game, resulting in huge damage loss that you can't pick it up. Since the Tornado has piercing, the actual ability does not work with Tornado, making it completely useless. This means that you have an extra ability in the pool for Tornado that cannot be used, giving the other weapons a slightly higher chance for better abilities. Tornado is mostly placed here due to its lack of knockback and limitations in ability choices, which is strongly relevant for mid to late game chapters. Other than that, despite the placement, this weapon is still incredibly strong, especially for early chapters. For co-op, Tornado is S tier. In A tier, we have the Brave Bow. The Brave Bow is a well-balanced weapon with an epic passive that increases the crit damage plus 50%, even though the damage of the Brave Bow is lower than the Tornado and Saw Blade. It still ranks higher. This is because it has a decent knockback, decent damage, fast attack speed, flexible in builds, can build on the epic passive with crit abilities, beginner friendly, great all-around weapon, and projectiles are small. There is some bad though. The Brave Bow still has the lowest raw damage in the game and the lowest initial crit damage even with the passive considered. Still takes quite a bit to surpass other weapons in terms of damage and is more reliant on other items such as wolf rings and lion rings and abilities. The bow is just a great all-round weapon, has the speed, knockback, decent damage, and flexibility in builds. This weapon is great to start a set with, making it even stronger. In A tier with the Brave Bow is the Death Scythe. a strong, hard-hitting weapon with slower attack speed. The Scythe has an epic passive that has a 50% chance to headshot enemies with lower than 30% health. This weapon has one of the strongest knockbacks in the game. Strong epic passive, easiest weapon to start a set with, highest damage modifier, high heavy damage, takes chunks of health with each hit, great weapon for mid-late game chapters, works well against all mob types, especially melee, and strong against tanky mobs due to its headshot passive. However, the epic passive is useless against bosses, has the slowest attack speed in the game, highest attack miss rate due to slow speed and due to the slow attack animation, can be bad in situations where you are under constant attack. In my opinion, this weapon relies on stutter stepping to counteract the slow attack speed, which causes the high miss rate on this weapon. I've placed the Scythe in A tier with the bow due to its epic passive and strong knockback, which does wonders late game. Crowd control becomes more important later in chapters. I would recommend using this weapon if you're a player who uses stutter stepping. In S tier, we have the Bright Spear. The Bright Spear's passive is when attacking the same target type, damage increases. This weapon is great. It has an almost instant projectile speed, nearly 100% hit rate, in my opinion, feels the best and smoothest. Multi-shot, ricochet, and front arrow work the best on Spear due to the instant projectile and low percentage miss rate. Bouncy wall and diagonal arrows plus other arrows are pretty lethal due to its instant projectile. It's also great for boss fight due to its passive. This weapon has no knockback, so it makes it weak against melee enemies. No knockback means you have to constantly reposition if you do not kill them fast enough. In my opinion, the hardest weapon to start a set with. The projectile is thin, but it can be hard to see due to it being a long projectile. The staff is also in S tier with the Bright Spear, with an epic passive of the lower the target's health, the higher the crit rate. This epic passive has great synergy with crit abilities and items. Projectiles follow the target, making the miss rate lower than other weapons. It is extremely, by far, so strong with diagonal arrows and multi-shot. Even just diagonal arrows by itself boosts the overall damage by a lot, and it's also a common ability. It has fast attack speed and decent knockback. It's strong against distant enemies and bosses. This weapon is extremely good in boss-based chapters. With its great pros, it also has some bad. The weapon by itself without any other abilities is okay. It's not that great in its rawest form. Slow startup time, not good if you have to constantly reposition yourself. It is ability reliant, mostly on just diagonal arrows though. It can be a gamble to use front arrow, and it's very hard to see enemy attacks and projectiles due to the huge projectile of the staff and its build. Lastly, we have the newest weapon, Gale Force. Gale Force, in my opinion, is placed in S tier along with the staff and the Bright Spear. Gale Force is a very interesting weapon. There is a bar that charges up the weapon for one big powerful shot. It slowly charges over time, or you can charge it a lot faster when moving. Calculations for this weapon were really hard because of how it works. It is dependent on the player and the situation. Instead, I just calculated the damage of the weapon without moving, and I didn't include the huge charge attack at the end. So my calculations are not 100% accurate. It's what I could do with what I had. So this calculation doesn't include the charge shot at all. The Gale Force, even without its huge charged attack, still deals more than all the other weapons. However, the staff with diagonal arrows still has the highest damage by far. I placed the Gale Force in S tier because of how much damage it does, because of its humongous knockback, huge charged up attack, penetration and attack crit rate. This weapon has a lot of stats and gets better and better. However, there are some cons to this weapon, such as its incredibly slow attack speed. It's not the easiest weapon to use, and the charged up attack can miss quite easily. I find this weapon to be quite situational, as it does a lot better in chapters where you are running around. The weapon benefits of this as you can load up a stronger attack. It's a pretty hard weapon to use as well, and it's not beginner friendly. And that is all for today's video. Let me know in the comments what your favorite weapon is and why. Subscribe and click the bell for more Archero videos. Like the video if you found this helpful. I hope to see you again for the next one. You can feel free to leave here. I am just talking about some things like why Archero has been going. So I have been doing other things like Wild Rift. I talk about this quite a bit in my Archero videos. But yeah, I'm doing Wild Rift videos. In March, it's going to be released to America. So for those who are from America, I hope that if you're trying out Wild Rift, you come to my videos. I would do my best to help you out. So yeah, that's next month. It's very, very soon. I'm very excited for the release in America. I'm very excited to see some of you come join me in Wild Rift because a lot of you are from America. And yeah, and I'm also thinking of opening a Patreon as well, but I'm trying to think of what tiers to do for that. So if you have any recommendations on what you would like to see on Patreon, please also let me know in the comments down below. That is all for today's video. Thanks guys. I'll see you again for the next one. Bye.